This year's event, titled Reclaiming Narratives Through Diversity of Thought, will explore the transformative power of diverse perspectives and the critical need to recognise and correct historical narratives. We will also consider how to ensure these narratives are no longer overlooked in the future. In today's complex world, embracing diversity of thought is essential for fostering innovation and addressing pressing challenges. However, this concept must be understood in full context, acknowledging the unique experiences and perspectives of those who've been historically marginalised. This event will examine how embracing diversity of thought represents a pivotal step in recognising Black history and culture and the impact on the engineering industry. We aim to highlight the significant contributions of Black engineers and address the missed opportunities in today's society due to the lack of diversity in the past. With that in mind, I'd like to welcome Alka Bhatt, Senior Manager and Co-Chair of the Academy's People of Ethnic Minorities Group, to the stage, who will host today's discussion between our guest speakers, Virtue Igbokwuwe and Dr. Nelson Ogunshakin.
Thank you, Isabel, and hi everyone. It's really great to be here today. It's a real honour to be here, especially with two such amazing people on stage. So I'd like to start with just a public announcement that I'm not an engineer, and I'm sorry about that. But I am here in my capacity as our People of Ethnic Majority co-chair. So that is our employee resource group here at the Academy. And I co-chair that with two of my colleagues, Johannes and Mahib, who couldn't be here today. But we work across three strands of the Academy life, looking at organisational accountability, cultural awareness, and career progression. So yeah, it's really, really great to be here. And events like this are so important to highlight the importance of community and empowerment as well. So it's really, really great to be here. So I'm just going to kind of jump in and allow you guys to introduce yourselves in the interest of time. So Dr. Nelson, I know you're a fellow of the Academy, but in your own words, it would be great if you could introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be back in the Academy. I do remember spending a lot of time in this building in the days of diversity and equity, and things have moved on. So congratulations to the Academy for staging this particular event. You would have seen my CV. You probably had it on virtual, LinkedIn. What you see is what you get. I am Nelson Ogunshakin. I was born in Nigeria. I came to UK about 47 years ago. I studied civil engineering, and I've worked like, my partner here. I started my career in contracting, and I went in consulting. I think there is no part of the world in terms of engineering that I've never worked in. Latin America, Africa, Asia, North America, Europe, name it, I've been there, done it, got a t-shirt. And I think the key essence for me is really about engineering making a difference. And from that point of view, I'm a fellow of the Academy. In the last perhaps 6 years, I've represented FIDIC, which is International Federation of Consulting Engineers, based in Switzerland. It means we represent 40,000 companies, over 2 million engineers around the world in 100 countries, and each and every one of them wants me to visit them. So my carbon footprint has been really bad for the last 6 years. But I'm glad to be back in UK. But in UK, I was on Crossrail for 3 years, got the Crossrail over the line. I was also on TfL board for 8 years. I've just finished my HSA. I assumed that punishment wasn't bad enough. I've just been appointed on High Speed 2 on the board. That's my story.
And Virtue, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Oh, mine is a little bit shorter. Hi guys, my name is Virtue. I'm a graduate civil engineer working for Virtue UK. I'm on a graduate scheme. I've been working in the industry for 2 years. Professionally, I've had the pleasure of working on projects and schemes within London. And one of the milestones I'm most proud of is I just recently finished project managing my first ever project, which is a £4 million cycle scheme for TfL and the council. And that cycle scheme, it goes through southwest London. And it was incredibly challenging because I was still a graduate and there was a large learning curve. But it kind of just proved to me that I could do anything I kind of set my mind to. And I had to have a lot of patience. I learned so much about patience during that 10 months of building that. And yeah, it was incredible. My main passion outside engineering, or maybe outside my job, is that I want to uplift and promote engineering to the younger generation, because I can delve into how I got into engineering, but I studied a master's in civil engineering at the University of Southampton. But before that, I didn't really know a lot of civil engineers. And I think it's so important that what the work we do and how younger people should see and know an engineer. So that's why I started my own YouTube channel, which allowed me to connect with people socially, and that had a really big impact. And it was just so fulfilling. So yeah, outside the industry, you can catch me in the gym, doing running or fitness. And yeah, that's all about me.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, so if you haven't checked out Virtue's YouTube channel, please do. It's really, really great. So for the first question, I mean, you mentioned that you started your YouTube channel for representation, to kind of be that representation of a young Black woman and engineer, but also to change narratives as well. And with that in mind, I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about what this theme of reclaiming narratives through diversity of thought means to you.
Yeah, no, it's a really good theme. I think reclaiming the narrative has been anything new, and I think Black people have been doing it for many, many years. So I think it's a brand new theme, but I think the barriers are still there that's like resisting us to actually reclaim these narratives. And it is important, because at the end of the day, if our stories aren't being told and we're not being heard, then that's an issue. And also with the diversity of thoughts, it's not me against you. It's that if you don't have everybody represented equally, race, gender, the whole lot, then you'll never get a true reflection of society, or we always will be thinking the same way. I very much not hate, but like, oh, we've always done it this way. I just don't think it's a progressive term at all, because yes, it's you've done it this way, but things are changing. We need to evolve. And that also means that people in the room needs to change and evolve. So yeah, that's what I think about the thing.
That's a really great perspective. And what about you, Dr. Nelson?
Well, I think just building on that, when you've been in the industry for 40 years, you say, where do you actually start? It's fair to say that things are changing, and the narrative is, needs to go with that. And generally speaking, you find that in the olden days, you don't get any visibility for any Black or any ethnic minority in the engineering space. I think the joke of the town, if you are actually working on a construction site in those days, you have to keep smiling in the evening because they won't see you because you are so dark. But I think things are changing, and I've seen the evidence of that. But I think the narrative that we need to put out is that, it's really a state of mind, and it's an institutional issue that organization needs to come on board. Whilst, the mind is changing, but it's also how the organization and the industry reflected on that. It is good to see a lot of young people in the industry, Black ethnic minority coming into engineering. That's fantastic news. 20 years ago, that won't be the case. But because some of us have gone through that phase, we're becoming role model, and we're actually encouraging young ones. I've got two nieces who are civil engineers. That's fantastic news for me. I have two of my children who are engineers, and that is good news because we're able to break that barrier. But should there be too much barrier? The answer is no. There should be no barrier for anyone from any color of any ethnic minority to be able to rise through. So I think the narrative needs to change through showcasing what is happening in the industry, and also needs to impact on how the companies and the industries reflecting on that. I sit on HS2, which is not the most topical subject. The first thing I asked the board is I want to see the diversity and equity statistics. I asked the question, what are you doing about that? What are you doing about local empowerment, employing people in the area where you're actually building infrastructure? And I was really mind blown. It was a lot of changes. If I flip back into TFL, there's a genuine mandate that within TFL that we must have diversity in every single policy. That because the board and the chair of TFL is of ethnic minority and driving that change. So it's that leadership that is required in every single step of the industry that need to make that change. I think narrative needs to keep working on, and I do believe we're making a change, but we're not fast enough.
Yeah, it's really pumped.
Can I just pick up on what Dr. Nelson said? Yeah, that's so important. But I also feel like the onus isn't on Black people to be the change they want to see. And as I grow into the industry and my career, it's I can voice things. Or for example, we need a what's called a Bain group, which is not really a word I would use. But if I say, we're lacking diversity in a certain sector in my company, that doesn't mean that I should then go lead and drive this whole thing. It just means that we have a collective effort to do this change. It's a lot of pressure to put on one person or one race to be the change that they want to see, but we're also feeling the quote unquote oppression. So that's what.
No, I agree. I mean, it's definitely something that we still in our work where we're trying to kind of foster a sense of not just putting it on, but then also not. We're a community, a group, but also we're looking for allyship beyond the group.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we all kind of experience as well. So I want to take a bit of a step back and kind of talk about the power of storytelling. And I want you both to tell me a bit of a story about how you both got into engineering. So Dr. Nelson,
I'll try and keep it as short as possible. It's not by accident that you have two Nigerian heritage sitting back here. And I think the joke goes in most of the Commonwealth countries that professional means a lot to parents. And in my case, my dad happens to be an engineer, and which is not rocket science. You have to. In those days, you are either a doctor, medicine, an architect. Those are the professions that you actually grow up to have to do. So unfortunately, my dad passed away when I was 9 years old. I never knew him. And I was 4 months old when he left Nigeria. So all I saw of him in UK with a photograph was him with hard hat and donkey jacket and sitting in front of, telecrobe doing something. And I learned about it very quickly. And I did ask my grandmother, so what does my dad do? And he said to me, well, son, as soon as people leave and people exist, there will always be a need for building houses, road, infrastructure. That's what your father does. And I thought, I'd love to do that. And it's not rocket science. On the basis of that, I took up engineering when I came to UK. And I did my first degree as a sandwich student, working for that company called Timac, which became Korean, which went bust. And I was privileged to went through the apprenticeship process, for 6 years. I got my first degree, and I went to do a master's degree in construction management. And subsequent to that, I was lucky. But people say you make your own luck. I got a job with a consulting firm that gave me opportunity to work all over the world. And it was a fantastic experience because whether you are a transport engineer, you are doing 10 airports in Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, you just travel around the same, it's fantastic, So I did that for about 14 years and I came back to UK. They needed somebody to represent, to be a voice for consulting engineer. I took up the role for ACE. I spent 14 years. I dealt with the government. We got the HS2, allocation money. We got the, Crossrail. We got all sort of big projects, inclusive being the voice of engineer, Somebody said something to me earlier on. It says, engineer dusting and they walk away from it. They don't talk about it. That's our biggest problem. We don't talk about what we do. We're not proud of what we do. And so I feel that if I cannot be the Brunel, and I can't be the Stevenson, I can't be the next one, because those days are long gone. There has to be somebody that speaks on behalf of the industry, and I took on board that role. And that was 14 years, so I got to know the politician, I got to know the government, I got to know things. And on the back of that, the FIDIC initiative came through. This is the world opportunity. So if I've done in UK, worked very well, everybody wants to listen. And I got to talk to all the banks around the world on procurement, on strategy and infrastructure. And within that, I never stepped out of active mode of engineering. I kept my role within TfL for 8 years on policy, on what is happening, whether it's 20 miles an hour issue, whether it's dealing with COVID, whether it's dealing with Crossrail. So that sort of experience gave me a different bandwidth to see the holistic solution of engineering. It's not just the concrete in the ground. It's not just about building the beam. It's not just about the steel. It's not that. It's the totality of it. And I think what I will enjoy most is the interconnectivity between society and what we have to do to make sure we have a society that is sustainable. Now, green is being talked as a nice thing. It's what we do in the engineering. So that's my background in engineering, and I loved it, and I continue to enjoy it. I was saying to Hyacinth the other day, I said that I'm going to stop doing that. I said, no, Nelson, don't do that. We need more of you. And I'm really pleased that, not only have I stayed in that cause, but I've seen a lot of young ones coming along the line. It's fantastic to see you do what you're doing. There are other people in the industry. We need to have that passion and encourage other people to come into it. For me, I think it's a blessing to take the profession. And if I have to do it again, I would do it exactly the same way. But hopefully, the world has moved better and we have more visibility and we can encourage young people to the industry. So that's my little story.
What about you, Betsy?
Okay, once upon a time, I'm joking. So I was born in Nigeria. I grew up there and I moved to the UK when I was 7. Before that, I also lived in the Netherlands and Norway. So I've during that travel and before moving to the UK, I could see how cities and transport and public ground operate and how different countries and different regions operate and engineering. But I kept that at the back of my mind because I didn't actually know it was civil engineering. So yeah, my dad's also an engineer. He's a chemical engineer, but that's quite different to civil. So I knew the engineering industry, but chemical was something I didn't know what to do. Mine's quite straightforward path. I studied maths, physics, and product design at A-levels. I knew I had those interests in those subjects. And I knew I wanted to be an engineer because I was open to that industry from early on because of my dad. So I'm just really grateful for that. But civil engineers, as Nelson said, I don't think we speak about it a lot. So you don't always have a prominent civil engineer that's talking about all the amazing things we do because we do a lot of amazing stuff. A lot of things that happen in our day-to-day lives involve civil engineers, but you would never know that unless you naturally, are a civil engineer or you speak to a civil engineer. So it's only because my physics teacher was like, oh, virtually, you should check out the IC's website, so the Institution of Civil Engineers website. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. It felt like homework, but I was like, I'll do it. And then I looked into the project, and I was like, oh, okay, I think this is like where all my things suit. So I'm like, I'm going to do that. So then that led me to do an integrated master's in Southampton University for civil engineer. And so I graduated with a first class degree. And I was like, okay, great, cool. And during that time, I also was fortunate to get like a scholarship with my current company. And that allowed me to get exposure into the industry. And I was like, oh, okay, wow, this is like what we do, especially in the transport industry, which is what I'm in right now. Because I didn't know a lot about transport. I learned a lot about geotechnics and structures, but there's a lot in transport, and I'll delve into that more later. But there's a lot where we do. So then now I'm on a graduate scheme. So I've been there for 2 years, and I rotate around the company, picking up different stuff like the commercial bit, which is also very important, the technical, the project managing, which I very much enjoy. And now I'm going to go into my next role, which is design. So that's my story into the industry. During that, I would like to add that while I was in Southampton, and because I didn't know a lot of civil engineers back then, that led me, because I went on YouTube to watch like engineers, and it was mainly the American engineers or like mechanical engineers, but not civil. So I was like, oh, there's not a lot of information out there in social media, and I wouldn't say I'm that old. I'm like 24, so back when I was watching it, I was like, oh, there's not a lot of information. So like in first year of university, I decided to like vlog my process of like being a civil engineering student, showcasing what actual civil engineering is and all the different like sectors I play into, like structures, transport, all the rest. And then I got like really good interaction, like people. I feel like I really connected with people who needed to see that for themselves. So then, yeah, I continued that during the 4 years, just like, oh yeah, this is like my day-to-day life of civil engineering students, X, Y, and Z, or like, oh, now I have a graduate job, what's actually been in the industry like. And so, yeah, my YouTube channel is called The Virtuous Life, if you want to check it out. But yeah, that's my journey into the industry.
Yes.
Can I just build on that? You know, I went through the same process about when people say, oh, your dad is an engineer. And then I asked the question, they said, there's mechanical, electrical, and the whole list goes through. Then I went through the dictionary, and it says all but military is civil engineering. Mm. That was the definition. It's all but military is civil engineering. And that's still the fundamental definition of civil engineering. Over the years, you have mechanical, as you know, because you go highways, it goes into that. But the dictionary just says all but military is civil engineering. So that was my thing. And I learned everything that I can learn about civil engineering, but it's more than just concrete or steel, though. It's the whole process, it's the engagement, it's the politics. And I remember somebody saying to me, if you ask who is the famous, engineer, not civil engineer, it's the famous engineer, Brunel. Then if it's Brunel, then just read about Brunel. He's a politician, he's a financier, he's an engineer. He took all risk. He understands everything about society, the planning, the process, and bringing project to fruition. And that to me was the essence of what got me excited as a civil engineer. And now I don't say I'm an engineer. You can call me anything you like. I'm an engineer. So I think if we get that narrative out to people, that engineering is more than concrete and steel and this is about society. It's about bringing world community together, by connectivity, about making our environment sustainable. The whole lot, is in there. So that narrative, we should be involved with that language. And that's what I have to live with every day. Not civil engineer, but actually being an engineer. But the definition of civil engineering is all but military is civil engineering. So you are in the right.
No, it's well said. It's really, really interesting seeing the common theme of communication and demystifying what the engineering profession means and the lived experiences of both. So I want to take another step back and maybe talk a bit broadly about the sector. And I'm really interested to hear your different perspectives on this. In terms of what you think the progress of the sector so far, in terms of diversity and embracing diversity of thought, and if there are areas that you feel that there is still need in the sector that still need to progress in terms of diversity and inclusion. So virtually, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah. I'm just going to take a positive spin. I actually think we're doing a lot in terms of like promoting diversity. There's a lot of like mentorship schemes, and there's a lot of organizations, non-profit, that like strive to like, increase the diversity within the engineering sector. And I feel like I'm privileged to like grow through this journey, knowing that like there's support and resources out there. So that's just a positive spin. So sometimes I feel like we're not really talking about all the things that we actually have done, because there's a lot we've done. And also I feel like with our generation, like Gen Z, I feel like we're very, very vocal, and like, if there's an issue and if there's a problem, I feel like we're definitely generations to speak out on it. And so I definitely think there's been a large amount of progress in terms of things that we still need to work on, I think it's more, I think it's definitely just more like the media and getting engineers out there in terms of like, not everyone knows that the things that we're doing. And I was saying, like, if you don't speak about your accolades and your accomplishment and what you've done, like, no one's going to do it for you. So then how are we supposed to know about all these amazing stuff if no one's actually speaking? And that goes for Black engineers as well. And the things that we do, like, it's a collective effort. So yeah.
I think progress has been made, but not fast enough, and not visible also enough. There isn't sufficient role model in the industry, and that is striking issue. I'm pleased as a fellow of the Academy to know Academy's got an agenda that wants to increase the number of ethnic minorities at this level, because for those who doesn't know about the Academy, it's only 1,500 people in the whole of United Kingdom that is a fellow of the Academy. So in that 1,500, you need to ask how many Black ethnic minority there. I think you'd be fingers crossed. So there is a challenge. Whilst we're not asking for the standard to be lower, but really to creating a pathway for the future is critical. So there is something that to be aimed at the Academy. That's the first. How does it go through the professional institution? Because that's the country to get into that point. How does that actually impact in industry where people need to work to feel part of the society? Is the pathway there to be there? I'll give you a classic example. We were looking for a new commissioner for London Transport, and I happened to be part of the recruitment team. And FIDIC Khan, who is the chair of TfL and Mayor of London, put an executive direction in. He said, we must have X number of Black, ethnic minority, gay, lesbian in the list. We struggle. We struggle. This come to me as an institutional issue. We struggle. So the pathway to achieve that is the goal for us. Whilst the Academy said the target we want to achieve, that's fine. It has to cascade down to the company. You did say about it's not just about the Black people talking about it. The industry must want it as well to happen. And the issue about diversity is really, it's not just about how many Black Indians there is in. When you bring diversity to problem solving, you have a better solution. And that's the answer. Because people think together, they act together, they have been joined up together. And if our society, if we have to reflect our society, then we have to get the people in our society to actually be part of that profession. So I do believe we're making progress, but I do believe that we have a long way to go. And I'm pleased to see the Gen Z doing more talking, because in our days, we just slip it. We just get on with it. We just get on with it. But with your generation, if it's not right, you talk about it. I've got 3 of you. I've got 2 grandchildren. And even my grandchildren is 8 years old. She tells me, Grandpa, how come it's only you? Everywhere you go, you show me the photo, it's only you and Grandma. And I have to tell it, because there is a lot coming through the pipeline. So we need to work on the pipeline. And what the Academy is doing is fantastic, to set the goal and to encourage the PI, also to encourage them, and also to get the industry to participate, because without that, somebody like yourself and others won't be motivated. And it's not just joining, the pathway to become senior person in that organization must be there. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we never have tomorrow's, commissioner from Black ethnic minority. So we need to have that pathway to come through. And I do believe the change is coming through, not fast enough, but we need to embrace it. And I'm really excited with the Gen Z coming in. Shout more.
Sorry.
Please do. Please do.
Thank you. So I've got one more question before I throw it to the audience. So I just wanted to ask as well, so what advice would you have for Black engineering professionals entering the field, potentially your future grandchildren?
First of all, do not see any barrier. And I meant it, because people tell you, don't go there, there's no pathway there. If that was the decision for me, I wouldn't be where I am today. The site that I had was my dad. That was my role model. And we need to get more people. So the advice is that do not be disturbed that there's no pathway. You have to make your own pathway sometime. You have to fight through the process, and you have to be forthright in your thinking the process. There will be bumps along the line. But, to me, I would say it's like, you go to war, there's so many battles to get to that war, whether you finish the war, you win the war or not. So those hurdles that comes through should not be a major barrier. They will be there. Because even where I come from in Nigeria, which is my home country, people from the north and south, and they differentiate between each other. And people here, between Scotland and Wales and Ireland, they differentiate. There is barrier, but when it comes to Black ethnic minority, do not see the barrier as a major problem. They're challenges and they're not problem. And it's just about that language. Every challenge can be overcome. But once you consider it to be a problem, you're stuck because it affects your mindset. So my advice is, please find a role model, find somebody to hook yourself to. I have so many role models that I talk to, and they're not black, actually. They're not black because there isn't a lot apart from my dad. I've got people like, Doug Ogilvie and, John Amit, people that I talk to on a regular basis, and they encourage you and they motivate you, they inspire you. And you have to live and work it, not just talk about it. Live and work it. So my advice to young one coming through, don't get deterred. Just consider, focus on it. Find somebody to be your role model and focus straight on that goal of what you want to achieve, and don't be derailed on it. That's my piece.
Oh, that's really good. I'm going to say something similar. But yeah, the whole thing about role models, I think even like getting to like the path or like the where I'm currently at, I had so many mentors and role models during my time that like it helps so much in the journey. And as you said, they don't have to be black or anything. It's just someone that you aspire to be, someone that inspires you, especially in the industry. And also the fact of like, don't let these barriers like determine how far you can go. I honestly don't really look at the barriers. Like, I think it's like, don't be afraid to like break the status quo. Like, honestly, being a black woman in construction is an interesting experience because it's like, construction is a very like male-dominated industry, and just being black and a woman, it creates its own unique challenges. And I'm not really afraid to like break the status quo because I know I'm meant to be here, and at the end of the day, I'm here to do a job. And so I just think you persevere and you just believe in yourself that there's a reason why you're here and there's a reason why, you're on this journey. And if you believe enough, you definitely will progress far enough.
No, that's great. That's really inspiring. So I was wondering if you guys had any questions. So I'm happy to open up to the floor. If I could ask you to stand up and introduce yourselves. I think we've got a couple of mics that will come round. Yes, I think there's a question here.
Hi, I'm Natalia from Evolito. You mentioned allyship briefly, and I know, Virtue, that you had a fantastic ally and mentor in your organization, but I find the allyship and generally the sponsorship being very much a kind of backstage backdoor support. Do you see the need for it becoming maybe more front-facing support, more vocal allyship for the ethnic minorities? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like everyone has that personal experience. Like, me speaking, I don't represent the whole like black women in my organization. I had like people who helped me and who guided me and who wanted to push me to like where I am now. But yeah, as you said, it needs to be like more front. Like the organization needs to like partner up with other organizations like non-profit who actually truly believe the cause of like increasing diversity. And it's not up to the semi-individuals filtered into the organization. It needs to be like the MDs basically need to say, this is what we're going to do. This is why it's important. And then it will filter down to like everybody else. So yeah, I agree. I just think like you need to get the senior management involved. And if they're not involved, I don't understand why they aren't. And then they also need to like put things in place, like actually implement things in the business plan, things on concrete rather than it's like, a person by person case. It should be a company-wide thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the word I would use is leadership, and that leadership cuts across. The example that I cited earlier on started from FIDIC saying, I want to make sure that at least equal opportunity are given at a certain level. But within the organization, the issue about how do people progress? And, a pathway needs to be created in that process. We're not asking for positive discrimination. We actually say a fair and balanced pathway for individuals to move through. And if you're looking to recruit the next prime minister, you'd have to ask, how many black ethnic minority, actually have a background to be in that position. So really, it's applicable to that. My view on it is comes down to leadership. As been said, earlier on, it has to be institutionalized. It's not just about he said it and therefore we must do it. No, it has to cascade in the corporate plan. In the TFL plan, we have an agenda at different level, all the way down to the operator from the bosses and everything. We have an agenda clearly, and all the senior management people buys into that. And we check it on a regular basis to make sure it's not lip services. So from my point of view, it's really about leadership and institutionalizing the process rather than hearsay. And a lot of people talk the talk, but they don't walk the talk.
Mm-hmm.
there any more questions from the audience?
There's a question there.
Hello, thank you. Thank you, guys. That was really great. Question for Dr. Nelson. You mentioned that there are times when, let's say, in leadership or management, the executive board are looking for people that are Black and ethnic, and they say where are they? So, what advice would you give for an individual that is currently in that position of wants more leadership, wants more challenge, but is maybe stuck, somewhere? And how do they make themselves more visible to get to that? Whether it's, as you said, they have to find their own path. What would you say to them to be visible so that somebody can say, I want this person to be on my team?
Okay.
So,
well, that's a very good question. I wish I've got a perfect answer for that. But let me share my thoughts with you on that. In any organization, depending on where you are in the strata of the organization, you have a line manager. And if the organization is savvy, in terms of progressive, and want to see people aspire, they will have an annual appraiser. And it's a platform to formalize your aspiration. You should take advantage of it. That's one point. And that is the normal course of progression. But if you have a very difficult line manager, he may decide to put a barrier on you. Okay, that's normal. I've been through the process and I've lived through it and I have to find a way to navigate that. So what you need to do, we talk about role model, we talk about a mentor. That mentor can be inside as much as outside the organization. And my suggestion is you find somebody you can hook up yourself. Not necessarily your line manager, but somebody that actually has some respect for what you do, that you can bounce ideas around, and through that, you get message through the grapevine. I'll give you a classic example. I had an opportunity to go to Indonesia. And for those who travel well, they probably know Indonesia is perhaps the biggest Muslim country in the world. And there's a view that they're not so liking Black people. And therefore, my line manager said, well, I'm not going to release you to go to Indonesia. Okay? And I wanted the job. And the cut long story short, I left and resigned. But I had one or two people in the organization that have been bouncing ideas around. And those people actually said to me, well, if you're not going to Indonesia, we don't want you to go. And what we want you to do, because we know your potential, we want you to go back to university. And I said, I'm chartered engineer. I've got my master's degree. What am I going to do? And they say, well, we can see you as a business leader potential. We want you to go and do an MBA. We'll sponsor you. We pay. So I had salary fully paid for 1 year to do the MBA. I came out of the MBA. I was above my senior when I came back. I became corporate development director for the whole of the group, which was a PLC. Now, if I had stayed within that line of inquiry of my line manager, I would have left the company. Nobody would have heard me. So find a way to navigate your child through the process without being destructive. And that's important. But I think, find a way to connect with other people in the organization that see you as a star and that can encourage you. And sometimes your next chapter may not be in the company. It may be somewhere else. But at least you have somebody to hook onto. So don't feel static. The natural world, have it on your appraiser that you have this aspiration, because when people look through your appraiser, they say, well, he's got the potential, he's achieved all this, he's achieved that. Why isn't he or she being given the opportunity if it's not personal? So my advice to you is stay within the protocol, but also find somewhere in the organization to air your view, to make sure you have people who can advise you. It pays for me, it works for me, it may not work for you, but that's my example.
Okay. Got time for one more question, so I don't know if anyone's... Yeah, just one more question. If you could stand up and introduce yourself as well before. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. I'll quickly introduce myself. Unzube FIDIC. Over a few hats. I'm on the board of the Africa Centre Charity, also on the board of the British Computer Society Foundation, and I chair the Institute of Directors Emerging Nets group. Great contributions, very inspiring. Grandfather was a civil engineer as well from Imperial. I went the other way, med school and then computer science. But I've got an ask and then a question. The ask is to all of you. I mean, your visibility, the narrative, storytelling, I think it should be shared a lot more. To the Africa Centre Charity or the Institute of Directors, would love to work with the Royal Academy and organize an event where we talk about board governance and representation. And if you're open to that, let's follow up on that. And the question is really around what keeps you motivated? Because obviously you've talked about your various backgrounds and you inspired us a lot. Just where do you get your strength from to keep going, to be resourceful, to navigate all those hurdles, the challenges that you face on a daily basis? Thank you.
I think that question is to both of us.
Yeah.
Have a go, and I'll let you have a soft landing.
Yeah, sure. The thing is, I genuinely love this industry. Like, the reason why it's easy to promote it is because I enjoy what I do. And then it was really cemented when I finished my first project, because it was 10 months of it was very hard. It was very challenging. But when I saw like the intended users use the actual thing that I spent all my time building and like project managing, I was just like, oh wow, like I didn't expect to feel this way. So then I just know how rewarding this industry is and how like resilient and all the great things that we can get from this. So that's what keeps me motivated, because I genuinely love it. Like, I just couldn't do something I don't like. It's just not me. So it's easy to talk about something you love, and that keeps me motivated. And there's also like speaking to the younger generation and in seeing how much value they can get from us, even if you don't think you have so much to say, you don't underestimate how much value you have to the younger generation, especially just being in the industry and then having all these like industry knowledge and your path you took, and then how you can just relay that back to them and they can come up with their own decision. Like, not everyone has to be an engineer, but it's the fact that the access is there and then the visibility is there as well. So that's what keeps me motivated. I just love my industry.
I've got two answers to your two questions. In the first one is, yes, please feel free to reach out. Okay. I think I'm a member of the Institute of Directors. I sit on so many, so you're welcome to call upon me to support. I said to Hyacinth earlier on, I've done my 6 years of traveling around the world. All the red carpet. It's now time to come back home. so I do love 106. So, you're welcome to contact me on that. How do I sort of, keep going? I think is the art of solving problem. Engineers solve problems. And whether we call it, traffic problem or logistics problem or commercial problem or political problem, we have that now. We're trained to look at things in a logical manner to find a solution to that problem. It's just the way the whole industry has been fragmented over the last 15 years has forced engineers into compartmentalization. It's been pigeonholed into electrical, mechanical, and there's no joined up. What I enjoy most in my career is the opportunity that I can see the totality and I can see the whole logistics issue that one needs to address. So from my point of view, solving social problem, people's problem, commercial problem, business problem, that's what gives me awake at night. So people say, why do you go on Crossrail when nobody wants to talk about it? We spent 3 billion more. It took us 3 years, but it's a very good Elizabeth line. And I'm so proud of it. And people say, why do you travel around the world? Because you try to get procurement process in place. And say, well, if all these multilateral development banks are spending 190 billion every year in giving aids and funding to different country parts of the world, we must find a way to put a process in place that what they are doing is right, is good for the society and all of that. So for that, as an advocate, I enjoy that. When it comes to issue, well, HS2 is a disaster. We've got it wrong. In 10 years' time, when HS2 is built, I want to stand there as a retiree and say, I had my contribution. I'm driven by finding a solution to social problem. And a lot of the issue that you see, Canary Wharf, without the infrastructure that is there, Canary Wharf wouldn't exist. A lot of things you see in London, without the infrastructure, they wouldn't exist. I spent 6 years going to my kiddie school. And I used to start by saying, do you know London? They say, yes. What do you remember about London? They tell you the buildings, the fantastic issue, the infrastructure and everything. And I said, if you take that out, will it be London? They said, no. And I said, do you know who did that? Engineer does that. And people say, I want to be an engineer. So that was kept me going. So I love solving problems. And a lot of the problems that I solve, they may be commercial problems, they may be transport problems, but it's about social problem, getting people together, finding a solution to do it. That's what we do. That's what we do. That's what excites me. That's what keeps me going. And I hope I can pass it on to my children and pass it on to the next generation so they feel empowered that we continue to solve issues. The so-called, net zero and decarbonization of infrastructure, that's a new whole host of challenges that we have to face. And we have to deal with it. And I think we're empowered, we are in position to do that. And I love being involved in that part. That's what keeps me going at night. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really inspiring. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for, but there's still going to be time to have some discussion over lunch. So yeah, it's been really wonderful to speak with both of you, and thank you so much for being so open and honest about your experiences in the profession. We learned about the importance of leadership, mentorship, communication, the importance of rewriting the broader cultural story of engineering. And it's been an honour to share the stage with two excellent engineers and really amazing and inspiring stories. So thanks very much.